Hey everyone, I am TheChosenOneLegend here, as always joined by my co-host.
Hi, I'm Kai, also known as Fascurreyn.
And welcome back to BunchaJokahs, where we talk about bits of gaming news and other topics from the past month. And it's been a little quiet, of course. We are sort of building up to what you would call E3 season, even though E3 is long dead at this point, so it's really just Summer Games Fest. But
Yes.
But there's still been some bits to talk about. We've got some news here. Of course, I should mention up front again, we're still not ready on Future Redeemed yet. Kai's literally going to be starting that tonight when we're recording this.
Yes.
So, but that will be coming probably later this month. Whenever Kai finishes, we'll probably start talking about it very shortly afterwards. But
Indeed.
in the meantime, we still got some stuff here, so we might as well get started with our first segment of the podcast. Can't have a podcast without news, baby, where we talk about the news topics. And if you do want to hop around the different segments, you can use timestamps in the description below. But to be honest, really the huge thing this month was the Sony State of Play they did. And whilst there wasn't a large amount of things to go into, at least not from our perspective and the games we play, probably the biggest deal that they ended on was Spider-Man 2, which we knew was coming this year. It's been confirmed for fall 2023. Unless it gets delayed, which, you know, it's possible. But
Yeah.
we got some look at him in action with, like, the new Venom suit. And I'm, like all of us, I'm just hoping they go meme with the Spider-Man 2 film references and do the dance. Make it happen. I have to start
See
with
ya,
that.
chump.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be really nice. I think the more references, the better. Yeah, no, the game, it looks interesting, though. I think that there's, of course, a lot of potential like there was with the first one, so... Yeah.
It's cool that you have... What we've got a proper look at is switching between Peter and Miles, and being able to play as both of them is really neat. We saw a lot of the sort of gameplay mechanics using the Venom suit, where he can sort of attack everyone at once with the tendrils. And from like a story perspective, we definitely do see that Peter is kind of going a little bit darker, and is having that the same effect it had in the film, where it's sort of affecting his mindset, it seems. So it definitely will be interesting to see how that goes down. Like, maybe at one point you might have to fight Peter as Miles or something. There's some really good potential they could do with that. So as long as they... I feel like they're going to take it a lot more seriously than the Spider-Man 2 film did, of course. But what I do hope at least is, like, some small references. Like, one thing is, in the first game, when you're sort of on the street, you can press square, which usually is attack. But on the street, he'll just like finger snap at random citizens or whatever, or wave to them. So I want.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
I've not played the first. So.
It's a really neat idea, like a small little detail. But if they could implement that, so when you're in the Venom suit, he like does the dance or something instead. That's all I'm asking.
It could be like a button combo.
Yes. Different combos get different schmoves. Yeah, let's make it happen.
Exactly.
But yeah, safe to say, I'm definitely looking forward to this one. I feel like, the first one was great. I talked about it back on the podcast back when I played it. And I feel like we didn't see too much really, because what they did was they showed what was probably the intro of the game or one of the early segments. Mm-hmm. So we didn't get like a proper look at other stuff or other villains, except Kraven the Hunter, who we know is going to be a sort of big factor in it. Yeah. But
which makes sense.
Yeah, definitely sort of moving on to more of the Spider-Man iconic villains. Definitely seems like he'll be interesting to go up against. But yeah, we'll find out more. We'll talk about it more whenever they start to show things off a bit. But seeing as it's meant to be coming out in a few months, that probably won't be too long. So yeah, looking forward to all of that. But the only other thing I think is really worth mentioning for us from the Sony State of Play was that we got some Metal Gear news, of all things. That they're releasing ports of the original 3 as like a collection, and Metal Gear Solid 3 is getting a remake, Delta, on, I think, PlayStation and Xbox. I think it's multi-platform. But yeah,
right.
I mean, I've never played Metal Gear. I'm guessing you haven't either, Kai?
No, I never touched it.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is the fact they're releasing ports as well of the originals. Maybe this is a good time if Tears of the Kingdom hadn't consumed my soul for the next 6 months. But this is a cool idea. I know people love this series. People are very passionate about it, and it's sort of been stagnant since the last game when Kojima left. So if this could maybe revitalize the series without him, that's only good news, right?
Yeah, I mean, it looks good. I mean, of course, we didn't see much. It was just a bit of CG, but no, it looks good. So hopefully the game ends up being good quality and revives the series a little bit, and that'd be nice to see.
Yeah, definitely gotta keep an eye on this one. But that is really it. I'm guessing there wasn't anything else in the state of play you want to mention, Kai.
Oh, I guess Foamstars actually comes to mind because everyone was talking about that. It literally just popped into my head. It's it's received very interesting feedback.
This is true.
Splatoon, wow, which is something else we'll get onto. But like, it's here's the thing. I don't hate the concept.
No.
Because it does something very different to Splatoon, where you sort of paint your own terrain, not just like painting the ground to swim in it, but it's like, no, you can paint the terrain to make like slopes for yourself and different, mountains to stand on, things like that. And it almost reminds me of, various different superheroes. Strangely enough, Frozone is the one that comes to mind first, which, I'm sure there's better examples, but I think you get the vibe of making your own terrain. And that's good. The problem is, it doesn't look very good.
Yeah.
It's the main thing is visual clarity. There's no outlines on anything. It's really hard to tell what's going on. So it just kind of looks like a mess. I feel like if they had a bit more clarity in what's happening on the game, then maybe it could be good. But at the moment, it just doesn't visually have any appeal to it, I think, because you just can't tell what's going on.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are sort of focusing on it's just a Splatoon ripoff, but I don't really get that from it, because I think it's clearly got some inspiration, but why not take inspiration? Yeah, why not take an idea and then do it in a different way on your own? That makes sense, but I do see what you mean. That it's still, I doubt it's going to have anything to the level of Splatoon's popularity. I mean, that's a given, really, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's
the thing about it is, the main reason... At first I was like, oh, it's not like a Splatoon ripoff. It's just like got a similar idea.
Yeah.
If anything, it's closer to Fortnite with the terrain, actually.
Yeah, that's true.
Unironically, it's more like Fortnite in a sense, especially with the visual design. But then I got to the part of the video where they show off the specials in the game. The specials are 1-for-1 exact copies of Splatoon.
Right.
Like the rest of the game, it's like, okay, no, I can kind of see the originality, I can see the potential. It's just, they've got some things to work on. Every single special attack is like a very, very clear copy of one that has existed in Splatoon. And again, if there was only a couple of those, I'd understand, one move where you go into a ball mode and then you can explode on impact at people. It's like, okay, no, that can transfer across different games. I understand how there might be some crossover. But when it happened for like the 6th special in a row, I was like, okay, it's gone a little far now. I don't know. I think it's just one of those things where we let them refine the game a bit more and see what happens in a couple months' time. Yes,
and I suddenly remembered one thing, talking about potential Nintendo ripoffs. That did make me realise they had also showed off their answer to the Switch, which is like a little portable PlayStation thing, which looks, in the first place, God, I hate that design. It doesn't look compact like the Switch, and I think it also plays off PlayStation Remote Play, which, from my understanding, people don't like very much. So, generally, from people who know about it more than I do, I don't hear positive reception to this. But it shouldn't be a surprise that they're dipping their hands into trying to get their consoles in the portability mode, like the Steam Deck's doing, like Switch has been doing, But I don't think this is going to be the popular answer to it ultimately.
I mean, it's a very weird situation at this point in the whole industry where Nintendo are coming up with all these really, really good ideas. But then other companies are just going like, well, That's a really good idea. We're going to do that, but with like actually good hardware, because Nintendo just doesn't have good hardware. That's the unfortunate fact of it. Um, but you know, of course, they have these really good ideas and these really good games. So all these other companies are like, well, we'll just do games that are like similar on hardware that look similar but plays better, and they haven't quite mastered it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they will before the Nintendo Switch 2 or whatever it is comes out. I think that'll be another step ahead in creativity that the other companies try and catch up to, whilst being miles ahead on hardware. But
I mean,
I
if
don't
you
know.
look
All of
back
that's a
at
side of things I'm not familiar with. So
yeah, I mean, we look back at things like the Wii and then the PlayStation Move or whatever it was that they had there. It's a long history of it, so it will be
yeah.
again. It'll be interesting to see if this does become popular, but we don't know anything about price yet. It's likely to be ridiculously expensive, and by fact it uses remote play. It's not really a console in itself. It's clearly not going to be on the same level. So yeah, it'll be interesting either way. And of course, there's again VR stuff, but that also falls into the battle of who's paying. There's enough for PSVR 2 at this point with the games it has. It's just not really worth the investment. Ultimately, I think is the problem. But we'll see. Why don't we move things on, Vokai, to your bit of news for today? Why don't you tell us a bit about the Splatoon 3 update?
Yeah, so Splatoon 3 is moving into its 4th season now, the Sizzle season. It's across the 3 months of summer.
Sizzle.
And yeah, as it goes, they've got their new update video they did. Pretty good trailer. I do like these Splatoon season trailers, by the way. They're all quite sort of... They're good at showing off everything that's new and keeping it, high paced and things. It's just good.
Yeah.
So they showed off various things. First off, stages. There's a new one called Barnacle and Dime, and they brought back Humpback Pump Track from Splatoon 2. Normally I wouldn't dwell on these, but the Barnacle and Dime new stage is very interesting because Splatoon 3's got a bit of a weird map design tendency, where the Tetris piece, the I don't know what you'd call it, the Z shape or whatever people call it. Out of all the Splatoon stages, over half of them have that exact same shape to them.
Right,
For some reason, they just all have the same shape and structure to them with, there are differences in the middle, but ultimately that's what it always boils down to.
Yeah.
And the exact same thing has happened here. This new stage is just that again. And again, maybe it will be a good stage, because we haven't seen the exact details of it. Saying that, it literally came out today, I haven't checked it. But it's just funny how, they've done the exact same thing for the stages again.
Yeah.
Hopefully they learn to make something original in the future, but we'll see. Paintbrush is a new weapon they've introduced from the brush class.
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to it. It's like a brush with more range, but it has more startup time. Looks like it could be really fun if you get in the right position with it. I'm thinking I might main it, depending on how I enjoy it. So that's got some potential. They also introduced the S-Blast, where it does a different range of attack depending on if you're jumping or not. Because blasters are very, distance dependent.
Yes.
So it's cool how you have multiple different distances you can play around. So those are the only 2 new weapons. Apart from that, they've just got a bunch of old weapons with new kits. There is the new Salmon Run stage, the Jam and Salmon Junction. Not much to say about it. Looks kind of cool.
That's a god-tier name. I just have to get that out there.
Yeah, Jam and Salmon Junction. I like it. It's a very interesting one because it kind of looks like it's a highway type thing.
Yeah.
And in the background, you can see what I think people are saying is the stage of one of the Splatoon bands, because of course Splatoon has got loads of different bands who play the music and whatever.
Yeah.
So people are saying oh, it'd be cool if they appeared every once in a while, which I don't think is going to happen, but it would be cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, new stage is always appreciated. Very minor updates to Table Turf, but I did want to cover it, the card game. they've introduced in Table Turf a new maximum rank of 999.
Are you
To
going for a
clarify,
Kai?
I've spent no. To clarify, I've spent maybe like 20, unironically like 20 hours, maybe more in Table Turf, and I'm still only like rank 30.
Jesus Christ.
Because it takes forever. I think when I calculated it, at the current level I'm at, it takes like maybe 15 wins or something like that to level up once. And a win takes like 3 to 5 minutes. So like, it's like really long. It's really, really long. So getting to 999 is something where unironically you would have to spend like 500 hours.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It's actually nuts.
Oh.
So if I ever see anyone with that, the badge you get for reaching 999 on Table Turf, I'm either going to call them a hacker or like book them into an insane asylum because one of the two.
Some madman's gonna do it, and not even in a long period of time. Like within like 2 weeks, it's gonna.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the Twitter screenshot. It's
Yeah.
gonna happen. And then the final thing, the most interesting thing that I think is worth mentioning, is they have introduced a new mode called Challenges. Now, these challenges are only limited time, unfortunately. They only appear like every couple weeks or so.
Oh yeah.
For a day. But these are like different modifiers on the game that you can play in online matches. And they look really cool. So, for example, the ones we saw in the trailer were you can only play weapons that have Trizuka, and your special charge is like really fast in it apparently. So people are going to be getting it all the time. A mode where the fog keeps rolling in and out occasionally, so you can't see what's in front of you. Which I kind of like as a close range player.
Yeah.
Because I can't get sniped then, hopefully. And then also ones where you can just like jump really high, which just breaks some of the stages in a really fun way. And it reminds me of GoldenEye.
Yeah.
These little modifiers. And I think that they're really, really cool. So it's a shame that you can only play them every once in a while, but regardless of that, I think they're an amazing concept to be introduced.
I wonder if you can like enable them in private lobbies or something. I don't know if that's a feature. But
I'm not sure. I'd have to check.
that would be nice if it is.
I hope you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. If not, then I'm sure they'd maybe introduce it in a later point, but the sooner the better, really. Because they do look like genuinely really cool ideas that would be fun to play around. So I guess we'll have to wait and see.
That's quite a neat addition.
But that's basically it from the update.
Yeah,
I think it's one of the best updates they've added.
Yeah, and it's something they can expand upon in further updates. They can add more challenges, new types of ones. So definitely a lot of potential there for not just now, but for the future as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I say this every single time you bring up Splatoon. I need to play more of it. Once again.
I've got too many hours clocked, you know?
Yeah. Nintendo stopped releasing games. Or it doesn't matter at this point anyway. Tears of the Kingdom is my life for the rest of the year, but it's
yeah. If they don't announce anything else, we'll be chilling.
Yeah. Exactly. But next time, like our friend Samm does it on stream or something, that's sort of my opportunity. I hop in, so definitely up for joining some friendlies with online friends and that. So yeah, neat stuff. But that is really it for the news, except. I did want to quickly mention here, we might have delved into this kind of things a bit before, but that's also really it for Nintendo because we know so little about what's coming up for them. We're at this situation where the only two, now that, Tears of the Kingdom is out, the only two, first-party Nintendo games we know about, I believe, are Pikmin 4 in July, and Metroid Prime 4, which God knows when, that might even be delayed to the next console at this point. We don't have a date.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, so we're kind of rating now, Tears of the Kingdom is gone, what is next for Nintendo? And seeing as we're sort of approaching E3 season, even if there is no E3, I kind of wanted to bring this up. Kai, do you think we're going to get a big Nintendo Direct thing, shortly, around sort of the summertime? And if so, do you think we're going to get a lot? What do you think we might get for the rest of this year?
I think we're absolutely going to get one in the summer. I think they'll 100% do their E3 replacement direct. And within that, I'm basically certain that it will end on or start on a big new game that's going to be the Christmas release.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we said it on the podcast or if we just said it in passing, but I think without a doubt it's going to be a new Mario game. I think Mario Odyssey 2. Just because, off the success of the movie, I feel like they have to bring a new Mario game soon.
Yeah.
They didn't do the summer because obviously Tears of the Kingdom is the summer, so the next possible opportunity for like a big release would be sort of around Christmas, just before it.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's got to be Odyssey 2. Odyssey sold very well, I believe. It was very well received. It's been a long time since that was released too, so that's what I'm waiting for basically, and I'm looking forward to talking about that when it does happen. I'm sure it will.
Yeah, that's a really good bet because, of course, the Mario movie, which I didn't bring up in topic this month, but is still increasing in sales. It's currently the third.
Oh, it's crushing it.
Yeah, it's the third highest grossing animated film of all time, only behind Frozen 1 and Frozen 2. And it's probably going to overtake Frozen 1, if not 2. So
That's crazy to me.
Yeah, it's remarkable how well it's doing. So this is going to be introducing loads of kids to Mario for the first time. They're going to be getting Switches and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is still selling, of course, for the first time. And you're absolutely right that winter, a big Mario game, it makes too much sense not to. So I feel like even if somehow it isn't Odyssey 2 and it's something like, I don't know, another sort of 3D World style game or something like that, like, there's got to be something Mario this Christmas. And
yeah,
I think that's pretty much the safest bet we've got because we know so very little, and it's got to be because they're winding up towards their next console. This is very familiar to like the end of the Wii U lifetime, where things started to wind down right before the Switch came out. And obviously back then we knew a successor was coming. We heard about the NX because they needed to announce something. But at this point, the Switch is still doing well. They don't need to rush out something quickly and assure people that yes, we're getting the sequel console out. But they have mentioned as much like that the Switch is performing not as well as they'd anticipated at this point, which makes sense. It's nearing the end, and whilst Tears of the Kingdom is going to give that a boost, everyone is waiting at this point. So I feel like next year is probably a lock for whatever is upcoming next. I feel like that's sort of they've said they have no plans for new hardware this year, but I feel like next year's kind of got to be at this point. But that does leave winter open. Winter is the open slot where you kind of need something, and if it's not Prime 4, which I don't think it is at this point, Mario, yeah, that feels like a safe bet. So hopefully,
yeah.
The question I guess also is worth asking is if we are getting a successor next year, do you think they're going to announce that this year at like a big E3? Because
the console, you mean?
Yeah, because a big E3 season would be the time to do it. But then again, given that there is no E3, it doesn't really make much odds which direct you announce at. So, do you think
I think it's absolutely possible. 100% possible. I can't say it's going to happen for sure, obviously, and I don't like the people who make whatever it is, the new Nintendo console thing trend every week.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with that, but if we can get a new announcement for a new console, then that would be appreciated, and it does seem like the most opportune time to do it.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see.
It almost could be a case of, it's sort of not quite Breath of the Wild where it released at the same time, because I don't think it's releasing this winter. But It could be a thing where, hey, and then you can play it on the next console in a few months' time and there'll be an upgrade or something. Or like, Final Fantasy VII Remake where the DLC was exclusive to the PS5 version or something like that. It's possible they do something along those lines.
I do wonder if they'd remake Tears of the Kingdom for it, maybe with like upgrades in it or something, I don't know.
Well, interestingly, I'm surprised we haven't heard about a Tears of the Kingdom season pass or anything, because we knew about Breath of the Wild before it released, and it released and then the first upgrade released like 3 months afterwards. So that kind of would make sense if they're doing some sort of its DLC is going to be exclusive to the Switch version. even if you can play your Switch version on the Switch 2, say, and it just is like a free upgrade, like they've been doing from PS4 to PS5 for some stuff. It'll be because I feel like it's got to play Switch games, no matter whatever the successor is at this point. It can't not really. So
Yeah.
We'll see, but that could line up. We'll find out definitely. Of course, if no matter what happens, if they do announce it, if we do get some big Nintendo news in June, we'll be reacting to a direct. We'll be covering it afterwards. So yeah,
Of course.
stay tuned here for whatever happens, even if it's just Summer Games Fest and Jeff Keighley shaking hands with all his friends for 20 hours or whatever it is.
Oh, I can't wait for Just Dance to get another award. Oh, I can't wait. Especially now that it's an Olympic sport.
It's getting big now. It's big stuff for Just Dance.
Honestly, yeah, it was the most anticipated game of 2022.
Absolutely. But that does move us on to our next segment of the podcast, Games Time Baby, where we talk about the games that we've been playing over the past month or so. And Kai, I know you've been playing one for the past 2 months or so why don't you get us started here?
Yes. So this is going to be somewhat of an extended one, because this has been a big game for me. I've been playing Octopath Traveler 2. I picked it up like a week or so after it released, maybe. I can't exactly remember. And I've just been playing it in my own time. I've just been enjoying it. And honestly, I had a lot of fun with it. I never picked up the first, to clarify. I know not very much about the first. And I just wasn't interested in it back then. I saw the visual style and I was like, it looks good, but not for me. Was the main thing I was taking away from it. I didn't pay much attention to it. But I played the demo for this one, as did you. And I was like, this actually feels really good. It's like really chill. So I picked up the full game and I've just been playing it ever since. I don't know how you found the demo.
Yeah, I mean, I had the exact same situation as you, really, because I played the Octopath 1 demo back in the day, and whilst I liked a lot of it, like the voice acting, the music was great, it felt a bit too archaic in some ways, and I think that's a common criticism of the full game, is it's a bit too old school difficulty in the way that leans towards bullshit at times, people say of the first one.
Right.
So I never really felt the need to pick up the first one, and given that, I thought, Tears of the Kingdom and Star Wars and that, I'm not going to get time to play the second one. I sort of knew it was something I wasn't going to play. But then I had a bit of time before like, I think it was just before the Xenoblade DLC came out, where I was like, okay, I have nothing to play now, and why don't I just try out the Octopath 2 demo? Sure, I have time. And it surprised me because it was really good. Like, it seemed to make so many improvements upon the first one, and just whilst I can't exactly nail it down because it's been such a long time and I never played the first one fully, and I know you, of course, like you said, you didn't play the first one either, but something about it just felt so much more fluid and inviting, and that's something I've heard from a lot of people talking about it as a step up from one. And I played this and I was like, okay, this is something special and I might actually have to pick this up. So it's on my list now, and I purposely haven't been watching our friend Samm stream it, which I was originally planning to, because I was like, I kind of want to discover it for myself eventually, even if it's like a next year or 2 years time, get it up on the sale, that kind of situation. The demo sold me on it completely, and from my understanding of what I've heard from you, the full game continues that level, I believe.
Yeah, it only really gets better is the thing. I guess covering different aspects of it. First off, just like the general exploration, I think is a really good idea of having the 8 heroes that you recruit across the game for the first part of it, and then just exploring each area is very good. I like how the world connects together, and you've got all your different towns that have different things in them. I like how within every town you've got your own stories and things. And one of my favourite parts, which I believe was in the first game, was every single NPC you can interact with or every single NPC that you can talk to, you can interact with in such an interesting way. Because you can talk to them normally, but you can then, with certain characters, you can fight the characters to take their items or to learn skills from them. You can just like knock them out completely, which is required for certain quests. You can inquire to like learn more about them, and they all have like every single NPC you can talk to has a backstory, which I think is like just unreal how good that is. Because there's a lot of NPCs.
Yeah.
And I like how a lot of those stories are like connected. You know, you can do all of that. You can recruit any talking NPC into your party to have like certain skills. They all have a unique battle skill, they all have a unique dancer skill, they all have a unique merchant skill depending on, you know, which character you recruit them with.
Right.
And it's like, that's so impressive how that's possible. It's just clear that they put a lot of effort into it, and specifically with the inquiring, I liked that because there are a lot of ongoing stories between characters. For example, there's one town in the game where every single person in the town has a secret when you inquire about them. Every single person is like, oh, I'm just like an innocent whatever, I'm just not doing anything interesting. And then every single one of them is they actually have a secret, and then it's something completely off the rails that you didn't expect.
Right, yeah.
Like, there's a guy at the entrance to the town who you talk to him and he's just like, oh, it's a great day today, don't you think? And then the inquiry about him is he's actually a killer who's killed over 100 people and is a serial murderer and and enjoys the gore of every single one of his enemies. And it's like, oh my god, okay.
That escalated quickly.
Some of them you inquire about and it's just like they haven't felt anything in years, or
mood.
They're cheating on their husband, or like one of them just says death, pain, destruction, death, pain, destruction, death, pain, destruction on repeat. And it's nutty, and I like that. I like how it doesn't feel like it's playing it safe. It just fucks around, and that's great.
Yeah.
So I really like that aspect of the exploration and just going through the different areas. Everything felt really good to do. It's something that you look forward to. And I ended up 100%ing it in the sense that I inquired and got items from every single NPC in the game.
Oh wow.
Which required a lot of time of like going back to every single one, because you have to be like certain levels for stuff. So that's the exploration, was really fun. The gameplay, like the battling, was really good. Again, it felt like an upgrade from the first game in terms of what I've seen. A lot of it carries over, like a lot of the movesets and stuff, but they've been just tweaked and improved slightly. So it all just felt good. I liked the, you know, using the secondary classes, and there's like secret classes you get later on. And just all the different, like synergy was the main thing, because just playing and putting everyone on whatever can only get you so far. Later on in the game, you need to start understanding synergy between certain skills to really like connect it all together, and when you do that, it feels great.
Yeah, I really love the it's like, you know, the boost system where you can like charge up moves and that to do multiple attacks. It's the way you have to use that strategically is so clever, and that's a completely unique layer to the combat compared to a lot of other RPGs.
Yes, exactly. It feels so unique. Because one of the reasons I didn't really care for the original was, oh, it's just another turn-based game. I'm good, but like, and I've been falling out with a lot of turn-based games like Pokemon. I'm just not interested in anymore.
Yeah.
I think it's, you know, partly because of the quality of the new games, and also just, I just find it kind of boring, like the 1v1 regular whatever. But having, you know, 4 allies and so many like different skills and abilities and, you know, passive skills and everything else just makes everything fun.
Yeah.
And I never got bored of it. So the gameplay was just superb to me. I loved connecting it all together. The super boss was interesting. We'll say that. Every attempt took 45 minutes alone just for the first phase of 2.
That sounds very similar to what I heard about the first game, Super Boss.
Yeah, I ended up having to like cheese it with certain strategies.
Yeah.
But you know, I think my record damage was like 240k in one attack.
Nice.
Which was a lot.
Yeah.
So I was pretty happy with that. But yeah, it's just great how the battling evolves through the game with your different classes and stuff. So that was amazing. Story was superb. From what I know of the first game, and I could be wrong, but it seems like all the characters weren't very connected in their stories. They were just kind of all doing their own thing, and then the final stuff kind of connected them together, but not in a huge way, from what I read on the wiki.
That's what I've heard as well. Yeah.
Like they end up having a vague connection, but not really. In this game, the same thing applies for most of it. For like the first, 80% of the game, when you're just going through everyone's regular stories, there's no crossover really at all. And that almost disappointed me a lot of the time, because when people had they had chapters in the same towns as each other, and I was thinking, oh, they could have done something story-wise to combine those chapters together, and then the characters could interact and things, but it was all very separate. But the stories were good regardless. They all had their own motifs, they all had their own motives, they all had their own story beats and different things that happened in them. And I really liked all of them. They were all pleasant. They all, I don't know, I just liked the contrast between them. They didn't do the same thing as each other.
Yeah.
They all delivered something different, which I appreciate, because normally you can't do that in an RPG. You just have to stick to one storyline with subplots happening. But this is 8 somewhat storylines happening.
Yeah.
So I really liked all of them. I think that they're all very interesting in the sense that by the end of it you're like, oh, that was a really good storyline, but it also, every single one left you with an itch that you couldn't quite scratch at the same time. I finished them all feeling vaguely unsatisfied of it was good, but it feels like something's missing. And then you have I won't go into detail because spoilers obviously.
Yeah.
Then you have stuff after all of their final chapters are complete, where it then actually really connects them all together, really hard.
Yeah.
And revelations from those itches you couldn't scratch all come to a head. There were various things where I just thought they weren't going to be covered. I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of weird that happened, but sure. And then it just all connects together at the end, and I was blown away. It was really, really impressive. They did dump lore on me, I'll say that. A lot of it, but I was here for it.
Yeah.
So I really liked that. Just overall, the stories were very, very impressive. Of course, you can't flesh them out fully, being 8 different ones, but they were all good.
Yeah.
And I guess the only other thing to take away from all of this was that it was the gameplay loop that I really thought was impressive. And I noticed, I was thinking, well, these stories, every single one of these stories felt very brief, and a lot of the dungeons felt very brief. So every single time I completed an area, a dungeon, a chapter, I was thinking, that was kind of short. And then I looked at my playtime and I was at 120 hours. And I realised that's trippy, because every single thing has felt like it was just a bit short. But I'm 120 hours in and still wanting more. So I was thinking, how have I been tricked into that? How's that happened?
Yeah.
And then I realised every dungeon is no longer than 15 minutes. If you ignore the boss taking 5-10 minutes, but every dungeon in the lead up to it is no longer than 15 minutes. Every story chapter has no more than half an hour of story in them, which is broken up by the gameplay and stuff. Every single area you explore takes no longer than 15 minutes to go through. Every town takes no longer than 15 minutes to fully explore. Everything took around 15 minutes to do. And there's that thing about attention span where you lose concentration after 15 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of that, of actually it's perfect. Even though I thought that, everything felt a bit short, it was perfectly timed. And I started noticing it more as I went through, that by the time I reached an end of a dungeon, my mindset was, alright, I'm ready for it to end now. A chapter, I was ready for it to end as soon as it ended. It all just felt like it was times where it was all short enough that you wouldn't get bored, but they had enough of it that it adds up to my end playtime being 130 something hours.
Yeah.
So they just nailed it really, really, really well. I don't think there's anything else to touch on really. Oh yeah, the music was superb.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it rivals Xenoblade genuinely. It's one of those like up there best of all time kind of things.
Yeah.
But overall, it was just like a really enjoyable time. And I think it would stand right now as being just my favourite like turn-based classic RPG kind of game.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I mentioned last year how Triangle Strategy was one of my favourite games of all time, and this is honestly up there with that as well now, as one of my favourites. And I think it is possibly the best modern, or just one of the best RPGs to exist. Full stop. Really, like turn-based.
Yeah.
I think it far beats anything Pokemon's ever done. So I think it could be applauded as one of the best. And I had a little look, and it's apparently a team called Team Asino as part of Square Enix, who have been making this and Tristrat and Bravely Default. So I'll be looking forward to what they do next. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Because that very specific team is doing an amazing job at whatever they put in. And I ended it being very satisfied. So
yeah,
there's my Octopath 2 waffle over. I really enjoyed it. And in the Game of the Year talks at the end of the year, I'll absolutely be mentioning it again in more retrospective action.
Oh yeah, there's going to be a lot of good contenders this year, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
But in general, it's good to see them taking what was already a beloved game and using the sequel to actually improve upon the faults it had, making it even better. So that's just really good to see that it's not only lived up to the first game, but fixed its problems and surpassed it from the general reception. So yeah, definitely one I'll be looking out for down the line when I have a break. But
yeah, it is an RPG, so it takes time.
Yes, and as part of that, for myself this month, I'm probably going to be a little brief here, but generally, I sort of plan to talk about Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I thought that would line up perfectly to play that and then finish it and talk about it this month. Then they shadow dropped a Xenoblade game 3 days before it came out, and that put that on the hold. And whilst I'm nearing the end of that, and we'll have things to say about it next month, I'm not quite there yet. So what I thought I would do is, given that with the length of the game it's going to be months before I'm talking about Tears of the Kingdom properly, I thought I might just give a few of my early impressions of the game here, now that I'm like 15-20 hours in. And surprise, surprise, it's really good. I mean, it's hard to do follow up Breath of the Wild, you know, there's a lot of expectation on you. And how do you follow up such a game that has such an immediate, special feeling to it? The first time you play that game, it's special, and it's hard to ever replicate that. But somehow Tears of the Kingdom really manages it. It's maybe not quite, it doesn't have that quite feeling of how unique Breath of the Wild was when it was first out, which it's never going to, it's a sequel. But it's a miracle how, despite that, it somehow captures a very similar feeling. And of course, I won't go into any spoilers or specifics here, but just from that moment you're first exploring the Sky Islands and you see it all spread out before you, and you dive below and you see the surface and the sky sort of all in one big location with no loading screens or whatever, you compare that to watching something like Skyward Sword, where you dive in the limited space and then it loads screens before you get to a limited linear overworld. Like, it's ridiculous how far we've come. And it never doesn't feel impressive. On the level Breath of the Wild did, that this runs on the Switch, even if my Switch fan is chugging a little bit, like, it runs pretty solidly without frame breaks most of the time, and it's just insane. And that sort of carries on to gameplay mechanics, where of course how much you could interact with the world of Breath of the Wild was what made it feel so special. And you combine that with the new mechanics here of fusion and God Hand and rising through the ground.
God Hand?
Isn't that what
You've been playing too much Inazuma 11. I don't know, I haven't played it. You tell me.
Maybe it's like Ultra,
Is it actually?
Ultra Hand. It's Ultra Hand, that's it.
Yeah.
I
was
blame
gonna
you.
say, I thought you were talking about a different ability. I was thinking, hang on a second.
No, you've influenced me, Kai. Curse you and your Inazuma 11. Deer's in my mind still. But yeah, all these new abilities Link has, like you think it's impossible to come up with 120 new shrine ideas after the ones they did in the first game, but no, they continue to innovate and add new ideas with different ways they implement these abilities that you learn in the shrine, and you find ways you can implement that into the overworld afterwards. And it's just crazy, the level of stuff it does to that. And there's so much more, which I won't specify, but so much more to it that wasn't even in the trailers, that wasn't shown off. Like, even what we saw before it's only like a scratch of the kind of things that are in this game, and it's just ridiculous, really. Like, they've done it again. Somehow. Somehow. They managed to do it again, and I know you're going to be starting up soon, Kai, because you've got the game, you finished Octopath now, and yeah, you were in for something special. Basically...
Oh, I'm so looking forward to it.
Yeah, if you were sort of on the fence about this, sort of a bit concerned about, is this worth picking up as a sequel to Breath of the Wild? Like, is it just going to be the same ground? No, it feels completely fresh and new. Even the land of Hyrule itself, like, yes, you sort of know the general topography of the areas, but it's completely different to the way that you experienced it before. There's so many changes. The characters you meet have changes to them. It's not just the exact same scenario. I think one of the biggest improvements, without going into specifics, is enemy types. It's not just Bokoblins and Lizalfos, like Breath of the Wild was 90% of the time. There's so many different enemy variations, both ones we saw in the trailers and ones we didn't. It's completely fresh, and there was so much to do in Breath of the Wild, and there's so much more here to do in Tears of the Kingdom. And yeah, I'm gonna be here forever. It's never gonna end. Goodbye free time. Goodbye social life. It's it's something special.
I've not seen much. You know, of course, I've been trying to avoid it, but some things have slipped through the cracks. So I'm aware of a couple things. But the main thing is just the stupid shit everyone's been making.
Yeah.
The tank was the one that got me. The fully functional tank is insane, and I love it.
And here I am, barely able to build a functional boat without sinking. But it's the fact that you can do this crazy stuff is awesome. And this is worth the 6-year wait for sure. This is if this is the last big game of the Switch before the successor, this is such a worthy send off. And they've sort of said that this is sort of the future of Zelda, like following this sort of formula of this open world Zelda, and I can see why. Like, obviously the next one shouldn't and probably won't be in the same world as this was. They can't really pull it off a third time. But this game completely earns its title as a sequel and the future of the series. Like, yeah, it's remarkable. So we'll be talking about it in depth at some point. Who knows when? Because it's going to take us forever to play it. Like we have to figure out our schedule for coverage of this game, and of course we've got Future Redeemed, which we'll be covering in the meantime. But yeah. You guys are in for something special if you haven't started playing it yet. That's basically it. I just wanted to sort of get those early thoughts out there. Good. But that really brings us to the end of this podcast. That's pretty much it. So thank you so much everyone for watching. Thank you for sticking around with us. Of course, you can find us here on BunchaJokahs on YouTube for video versions of podcasts and certain reactions, with audio-only versions on podcasting sites like Spotify, etc. But Kai, where else can people find you at?
They can find me at twitch.tv/Fascurreyn, where I will be starting, as we said, Future Redeemed very soon. By the time this video comes out, I'd have been like halfway through it. Luckily, I've not really been spoiled on that at all, so who knows? All I know is that I'm going to be full of beans.
Yeah, true.
So, you know, if you want to see my reactions, I will be over there, and soon after that, those videos will be uploaded to YouTube as well.
Of course, and we'll have links in the description to those below, as well as a link to our friend Sam, who's our graphic designer who makes all our thumbnails and the channel logo, so thanks again, Sam. And that's it, so just stay tuned to BunchaJokahs, of course our monthly podcast, first Sunday of each month, but also coverage on Future Redeemed coming out shortly, and Tears of the Kingdom at some subsequent point after that. So, yeah, see you guys then. Goodbye.
See ya.